I'm so glad you're with us on the Clark Howard Show, where it's about you learning ways to keep more of what you make. Coming up in just 20 minutes, there's something dirty, nasty, rotten, awful that employers are doing to you as a worker. I want to tell you what to look out for, what to avoid in today's Clarkrageous moment. And a half hour from now, if you ever end up at the hospital, the billing that you get from the hospital, man, is it a mess. And what you're being asked to pay or told to pay as part of the bill has skyrocketed. I have some key tips to protect your wallet coming up in just 30 minutes. You know, our web address has changed. It's now simply clark.com, CLARK.com. And if you got a question for me, go to clark.com/ask. We are at a time that there's obviously enormous anger and division in the United States. A lot of people disgruntled, unhappy with institutions of all types, unhappy about income inequality, underemployment, all those things going on. And there was so much talk 4 years ago about the 1%. But what's actually happening in the United States is more complicated than that. We have a larger number of people living well in the United States than perhaps we've ever had in American history. Close to 1 in 3 Americans are making very high incomes relative to the average in the country, and the other 2/3 are absolutely wheezing. So I know so much has been said about the 1%, even the 0.1%, and then the 99%, and all that. But the reality is that in an era of great technological change, and I know a lot is pinned on foreign trade, but the technological change has been a bigger factor in what's caused this separation of economic winners and losers in the United States. And it is so at the core of why people are disgruntled, why there's so much anger, frustration, people who've dropped out of the workforce because they've just given up. But the fact is that the separation has been based very heavily on education and specific skill sets. So we've got a significant, very large, if you think of it, roughly 1 in 3 Americans that are making very, very good incomes. And then a lot of people who used to make decent incomes, but not huge incomes, have fallen way back as the job they had or the factory they worked in or whatever has closed. And it's a pretty dismal situation. The answers that you'll hear in the political sphere are so heavily based around who to point fingers at. The reality is dealing with the fact that 2 out of 3 Americans roughly are suffering financially. The answers to how to deal with that are more complicated and not as fun and can't be reduced to a 10-second or 12-second soundbite. And I know the natural human instinct is to look for someone to point the finger at and someone to blame. But economic dislocation happens throughout history. At the margins, we've had things that have stacked the deck even more heavily against the 2/3 of Americans who actually have less income inflation adjusted today than they had a generation ago. And there are things that have happened with the influence peddling in Washington and the coddling of the special interests and the giant monster mega banks and all of that stuff has been a factor. Trade has been a little factor. The biggest of all is the skill sets that you have to have now to move up the economic ladder have changed so significantly and dramatically. From a public policy standpoint, we need a complete overhaul and rethink about how we do education and not think of it as being something that's age 5 to 17 or 5 to 22 or whatever. And you may have heard me say this before, education has to be something you've got to pursue through your whole lifetime. And there needs to be a clear connection between what the educational institutions offer and what the employers need. I talked recently about how of small employers, half surveyed said they have jobs they can't fill right now because they can't find applicants who have the skills or training they need. For you as an individual, the ultimate message of this is don't wait for public policy to fix this. If you are underemployed, if you feel like you're slipping behind, you know you've fallen behind, education or training, that's going to be the key to you getting ahead again. You know, this split is ugly. You know, when you have 1/3 of Americans living very well and 2/3 that are not doing well, that is not good for what this great country is about. We need to have economic opportunity for all of us, not just 1/3 of us. James joins us on the Clark Howard Show. Hello, James.
Hi, Clark. How are you doing?
Great, James. I hope you are.
I am. I kind of have a unique question regarding a first-time real estate investment. My wife and I are both in our mid to late 20s. We don't have children. We max out our Roths every year. We contribute to our 401ks, and we've been saving for a home purchase over the course of the last 2 years.
James, how did you and your wife in your 20s become so wise beyond your years that you were both so good about saving for the future? That is not normal, you know.
Well, I attribute it to both of our families and just, you know, hard work ethic and good work ethic and hard work and just paying off, saving as much as you can. We do live, too. We just got back from a vacation, so we try to live within our means but also have a good time. Well,
you know, that's the right balance. I remember being on one of the TV talk show thingies, one of those syndicated shows, and I was working with couples that were either really great with money or really terrible with money. And I was talking with a couple that they're max savers, they're extreme savers, but it was starting to shred their marriage because he, in particular, would never free up the money at all to go do things like take a trip. It's really important to have that balance that the two of you have achieved.
Right. No, we agree. My question is, though, I travel quite a bit for work, and we never seem to be able to kind of stay in one place in a smaller geographic area for more than 3 years. So I'm torn right now in investing in a vacation property where both of our families live up in the Pacific Northwest that we frequent 5, 6, 7 times a year versus a first-time home purchase where we currently live in Northern California, which we have lived here for the last 7 years. However, we've moved around every 2 to 3 years in areas which are pretty far apart just due to both of our professions. So
yeah, with you at the stage. So James, with the two of you at the stage you are with your careers and you are constantly moving, it would not make sense to own a primary residence right now.
You know, some properties that we're looking up in the Pacific Northwest are a third or a quarter of the cost of the homes we're looking at in Northern California. So
yeah, and the thing is, particularly in core areas of the San Francisco Bay Area, renting is still cheaper than owning. Where in Northern California are the two of you? We were in the North Bay area, so the Sonoma area,
for 3 years, and now we just left the Bay Area, and now we're in the Sacramento area, in the Davis area. Which is the Sacramento area is inexpensive to rent, but in the Davis area it is not inexpensive to rent because it's a college town,
right.
Unfortunately.
UC Davis. I though, because of the fact that you are following your careers right now, I have never given the answer I'm going to give right now. I want to tell you, this is a never. In 26 years, I've never said this. In your case, with how well the two of you are doing saving money and all that, it would be a smarter move for you to buy the vacation property that you can buy at a very depressed price right now and have it as a place to go. I don't even look at it as an investment, except an investment in your life together and the enjoyment you would have there. And ultimately, maybe it will become a worthwhile financial investment, but I wouldn't look at it that way. But even if real estate values were to continue to move up where you are, because of how quickly you move, it would be a speculative investment. It would be speculative, not an investment, for you to buy a home in Davis. So I would encourage you, even with the high rents, to continue to rent. And if you do want a place to stake a claim on, it would be that vacation home. And you know that your roots are in the Pacific Northwest. It's likely to be where you go back to visit. It may be where you ultimately, down the road, with all that money you saved in your Roth and 401ks, maybe the home you end up really wanting to retire in someday. I think that's a smarter move. And I'm telling you, James, I have never, ever given that advice, ever. But in your case, I think it's a better prescription. And congratulations to both of you in your 20s. Our web address, clark.com. When you got a question for me, go clark.com/ask. But we're going to turn to our Ask Clark department right now. And Joel, who do you have an Ask Clark from?
Clark gets questions from Jeff. He says, is whole life insurance or universal life insurance ever a good idea?
So, Jeff, universal life insurance. I have never, ever seen a circumstance that universal life or variable universal life makes sense. I had an insurance agent stop me recently and say, thank you so much. They try to get us to sell that junk to people all day long. Keep telling them what junk universal life insurance is, because it is. Whole life. There are a small number of circumstances where whole life insurance makes sense. First, if the premiums are not an issue, and often it is that you can't buy enough coverage for your family, for your survivors, if you buy anything other than term insurance. But if you can afford very high premiums for whole life and you are a higher income earner, generally north of about $400,000 a year, whole life insurance can be a smart buy, a smart purchase. But again, that's a very small slice of the market. Here on the Clark Howard Show, it's so key for me to tell you about ways somebody may harm you. I want to protect you from people that will rip you off. There's something that employers are doing that infuriates me, and you need to protect yourself in today's Clark-rageous moment.
Scams, rip-offs, outrages. It's a Clark-rageous moment.
Covenants not to compete are things that are like locusts that are eating into the rights of employees everywhere in this great land of ours. I despise these things. And today, you have a 1 in 5 chance that your employer has behaved terribly to you and imposed one of these rotten, terrible, evil covenants not to compete on you. What it means is that even if they lay you off or you get fired or if you quit, you are prohibited from earning a living in your chosen profession for a lengthy period of time, often 2 years, with extreme geographic restrictions and employment restrictions, which if you were someone who was a high level in a corporation, you have access to trade secrets. And you could use those to harm your employer going to a competitor. I get that. But these things are being used for delivery people delivering sandwiches. All different, insane situations where employers are spitting on you and treating you like dirt. Now, remember, I said 1 in 5 of us are under these idiotic, evil things. Now, the job market has improved enough that you don't have to just take it. When you are considering a job, if an employer wants to handcuff you to one of these awful covenants not to compete, I think you tell them, I'm sorry, I'd love to work for you, but I can't if you require me to sign this covenant not to compete. And let me tell you, a lot of employers that want to hire you will then lie to you and tell you, oh, don't worry about that. We don't enforce those. Liar, liar, pants on fire. And then you go to seek other employment and you might be asked, hey, are you under a covenant not to compete? And if you say yes, you're out. They're not going to consider you because they don't want to end up in court. You know, some states have now banned these things. They are unconscionable. And if you are an employer doing this to people who work for you, no excuse. You are doing a terrible thing and you need to stop it right now. Welcome to the Clark Howard Show, and this show's about you and about your wallet. I want you to learn ideas from me so you can stretch every dollar, so you can save more and spend less, and don't let anybody ever rip you off. Our web address, clark.com. I want to talk about what's going on when you go to the hospital now. Insurance has changed dramatically, and employers in particular are imposing extremely high out-of-pocket on you if you go to the hospital. And in many cases, employers have become more friendly with certain things. If you fill medicines with generics, some employers now are making those free. And because of Obamacare, certain wellness visits that you used to have to pay for are now free. But when you go to the hospital, wow. Average hospital bill is up roughly 40% in the last couple of years. That is your portion to pay when you have insurance. And you're likely to pay in the thousands of dollars is your share of what's known as the balance bill. But the thing is, you need to know that the bills are often highly inaccurate. Did you know that? Hospitals have never been that good at the billing stuff, at least in terms of disclosure and accuracy. And something I want you to know is that if you end up with a hospital stay, knock on wood, you come out really healthy, but whatever, you're in the hospital, and you come home and you feel like you got to go back after you have the coronary from looking at the bill and your portion of it, and bulletin, the bill, you have about 100% possibility that the bill is wrong. You hear that? Not 40%, 20%, 60%. Right at 100% of hospital bills will be wrong. And you, when you're facing a big out-of-pocket, you have something you should be doing. And that is look at hiring a billing consultant. Usually they used to work in a hospital-based environment, and they usually take a percent of the money they save you as they go through the bill and find all the errors in it. I have information for you at clark.com how to hire someone to review your bill for you. And the emergency room thing, you probably have seen this. Hospitals now having an app where you can make an appointment, or on the computer, you can make an appointment for the emergency room. So you're not waiting in the emergency room. They give you an appointment like you're going to a doctor's office, and they tell you when to come. Or you register on the app on your phone, and they say, okay, we're going to be able to see you at 10:47 p.m. Come on, or whatever it is. All right, why are hospitals now being so customer friendly on that kind of stuff at the emergency room? Because the emergency room, they can charge these massive fees for you going there. There are a lot of things that may happen that are things that maybe you need to be seen on an expedited basis, but they don't rise to the level of a true emergency. If you can remember that and look for an off-hours facility you can go to that would be so much cheaper than going to the emergency room, gosh, your wallet would be happy, and likely the routine of being seen will be much easier than being at the hospital emergency room. We need to get back to the emergency room being for what it was originally intended, and that's people that are on the verge of life and death, true emergencies. Follow me at facebook.com/Clark Howard. Our web address, clark.com. When you got a question for me, go clark.com/ask. Cheryl is with us on the Clark Howard Show. Hi, Cheryl.
Hi.
Cheryl, you have received a scam call that is a very disturbing scam call. Tell me about it.
Well, last week I received a call from a major computer company.
Oh, we're among friends here. Go ahead and name them.
Microsoft. They
Did Bill Gates call you himself?
No.
Okay.
No. I don't think Bill Gates had the same accent.
Okay.
The person said that they were calling me because they had received so many error messages, and that this was a service they were providing, and that I was to type something into my into the run box.
Ooh, did you do it or not?
Oh, no.
All right, well,
No,
I got to tell you, what they're about to ask you to do...
That does not compute.
The reason is what that con artist was trying to do was engage in a practice called in the industry ransomware. When you typed that information in, they were asking you to type in, what would happen next is that individual would seize remotely the operation of your computer and then would put viruses on your computer, that the only way they would tell you you could get those viruses off your computer would be to pay them a ransom.
Right. I wrote everything down, and I said, oh, I'm sorry, I have to leave. Could I have your number? I will call you back just as soon as I get back. And I didn't expect to get a phone number. I got a phone number. So I called them, I checked the phone number online, and it is a scam, and it's like $74.99 to remove all those terrible viruses.
And by the way, they don't really remove them. Let me tell you how it gets even worse. And I should point out, the caller has nothing to do with Microsoft. It's just a scam pretending to be from Microsoft. What they do is they release the stuff on your computer that has frozen it, and $75 is the cheapest I've heard. Usually it's a couple of $100. But what they do without you realizing it is they leave on the computer spies that capture your keystrokes, any account numbers you enter, any passwords for bank accounts, brokerage accounts, anything like that. They gather all that information, and then they try to steal everything they can out of your accounts.
That's exactly what I thought they were going to do. As soon as the person told me that it would give him access to my computer, and I'm thinking, I don't think so.
Well, you were a smart lady, and it's really neat. You looked up the scam based on the phone number you were given, and I'm so glad you did not give this crook access to your computer.
so am I.
Well, have a great day. And Cheryl, you know what? You just made yourself a member of Team Clark because you warned your fellow listeners away who might get a call similar, that they'll know the person at the other end of the line should hear a special friend, Mr. Buzz, the dial tone. Thank you for your call, Cheryl. Philip is with us on the Clark Howard Show. Philip, you have old Series I savings bonds. How far back do they go, Philip?
I'm thinking it's around there. I cannot find the exact paperwork. Everything's in a safety deposit box, of course, but thinking it is around '07.
Okay, because if you bought them in '07 or earlier, you need to congratulate yourself because you're earning a return better than most any other normal earthling on the Series I. I stands for inflation, U.S. savings bonds. The program was so turned out in hindsight to be so generous to the small saver that today it doesn't work that way at all. But you likely are earning a minimum return on your money if you bought in 07 or 07 or earlier of like 1.2% or higher plus the rate of inflation. So you think about today, people try to put money into a savings account, and if they're really, really, really lucky, they might earn nearly 1%. In those Series I savings bonds, you're earning that just for breathing plus the rate of inflation. So you might be earning as much as 3% over the course of a year, much better than you can anywhere else.
Let's say that they're '08, or just on the off chance that it's '08 or later.
Right, '08.
I'm moving them to.
Depending on when you bought them in '08, the issue date, you could be earning nothing at all plus the rate of inflation, or you could be earning 0.7 of 1% plus inflation. If you're even at 0.7 of 1% plus inflation, you're still beating the daylights out of anything anybody could earn in a savings account or a CD.
So either way, it sounds like to me that you're recommending I just leave them put. And
especially if they're 07 or earlier. My brilliant wife bought a bunch of these back in the spring of year 2000, and she's earning 3.6% plus the rate of inflation. And I waited months before I joined her, and so I'm earning 3.4%. See, it goes back to that rule, your wife is always right. I should have done it when she did. So anybody who owns Series I savings bonds from 07 back, you want to hold them all 30 years the way they were structured. So that's why it's important that you find them, Philip, and see when your actual issue date was, because 08 becomes a different question.
Thanks so much for your help.
Okay, have a great day. And Donovan is with us on the Clark Howard Show. Donovan, you want to ask me a question about your credit cards?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for taking my call.
My pleasure, Donovan.
I had two cards with this one institution. They're no longer the one for me. I closed one out. I still have the one with the horrific APR. So I paid the balance. I have a zero balance, so I'm going to start looking for another card. So I want to find out where I can start to look for a card with the 0% or great percentage rate over a long period of time, not just an introductory period.
Well, that answer is so easy, I can't even begin to tell you how easy it is. It is 2 words: credit union. Because credit unions pretty much by themselves in the credit card orbit offer just a straight, clean deal day after day, month after month, year after year. They don't do the teaser kind of things at 0% for 9 months or whatever. They just offer you a deal that's a deal for years and years and years, because you own the place when you have an account at a credit union. Now,
wonderful.
One thing really important, whether you end up doing a credit card from a credit union or somewhere else, do not close that account you're talking to me about until you have another card from a good, legit place.
That was part 2 of my question.
All right, so then I got a question for you. The card that you have that has this lousy interest rate, does it also have an annual fee?
Yes. It's not a large one, but it does have one.
Okay, by not large, you mean like $20, $50?
Right. I think it's 20-something, $22 or $25, something like that.
All right, I'm going to surprise you. Until you have established 2 credit cards that are good, clean credit cards, I don't want you to close this one out, even if it means you have to keep paying the annual fee.
Okay.
And then once you have 2 good cards, Donovan, then you fire them. Then you send them packing. But if you end up having to pay one more annual fee to them, wait like 10 months or so. Close it as late as you can before your next annual fee would happen so that you're improving the aging of your credit experience and the amount of available credit you're showing. Follow me at facebook.com/Clark Howard. Our web address, clark.com. When you got a question for me, go clark.com/ask. And Michelle is with us. Hi, how are you doing?
Hi, thank you for taking my call.
Sure. You have a question about the safety of certain investments. What are you most curious about?
Well, I did several small 401ks with different employers over the years, and the majority of my money was spent trying to save a condo that ended up as a short sale. I now have 3 very small 401ks in well-known companies and a new employer who has matching funds in a program in a company I've never heard of at all. So I'm trying to figure out if I should combine all these into one and what I should do. And my main question has to do with, how do I know if the company's safe? I know if I put money into a bank, that if the bank goes under, that my funds are insured, like FDIC insured. How do I know with a mutual fund or a company, say a Vanguard or Fidelity, if my money's protected in that way?
What a wonderful question, and no one has asked me that in years and years. And so here's the scoop. With a mutual fund or an index fund or anything like that, like you'd buy from Vanguard or Fidelity or T. Rowe Price, Schwab, anybody like that, when you buy one, the fund itself, the value of it rises and falls every day with whatever it's invested in. But if, let's say, something crazy happened and Vanguard went bust, like all those banks did back in the financial crisis, it wouldn't hurt your investments at all, because each fund that a company has its own structure, and the value is always based on the investments in it, not what happens with the parent organization. So that's why there doesn't have to be anything like FDIC insurance on a mutual fund or index fund. Because let's take a mutual fund. The mutual fund might hold stock in a bunch of different companies, right? So the value of that fund is based strictly on what happens with the companies they own day to day. So whether the parent was not running a good business, the parent meaning whatever the mutual fund company is, that doesn't have any effect on your money. No risk at all. The risk is that the fund goes down in value because the investments in it don't do well. And the reward is that the value of the fund goes up because the funds in it the holdings in it do well. You at a smaller company, a smaller employer?
Yes.
Okay. So in that case, you want to put money in up to the employer match. Any additional money you save, you want to do independently in your own IRA.
You know, when you're going to buy a car, pricing information is great and necessary, but there's more to doing it than just the price. There's the actual buying experience. If you want to enjoy a better one, you should go to a True Car certified dealer. They're there to help you find the car that you want, and they're also what make True Car unique. With True Car, you can connect with a local certified dealer that you choose, so you can lock in a guaranteed savings off the MSRP and enjoy a totally better buying experience. And by better, they also mean faster. Over 2 million cars have already been sold to True Car users who have visited their True Car certified dealer. And there are over 11,000 True Car certified dealers nationwide, so it's probably pretty easy to find one near you. And check this. For a new car, average TrueCar users save $3,279 off MSRP. All right, so you're probably wondering, how do I do this? It's easy. Just go to TrueCar.com or, right there on your phone, download the TrueCar app. You can find the car you want, see the TrueCar pricing curve, which shows you what other people in your area paid for the same car, and that way you can know you're getting a good price and feel confident. Then you'll get a guaranteed savings certificate from the TrueCar certified dealer. Go to the dealer, and your guaranteed savings off MSRP will be honored, and you enjoy a quick, easy experience. How's that for car buying? So when you're ready to buy a new car, or even a used one, visit TrueCar.com or download the TrueCar app and enjoy the better car buying experience. Some features are not available in all states.
I'm so glad you're with us on the Clark Howard Show, where it's about you learning ways to save more and spend less, and don't let anybody ever rip you off. One area people always complain about being ripped off is buying a used car. Most of us buy used cars. There's a big change going on right now in the used car business, a new development for your wallet that's coming your way in just 30 minutes. On the web, we're at Clark.com. When you got a question for me, Clark.com/ask. We waste so much money throwing food away. Depending on who you believe, we waste somewhere between 1/4 and 40% of all food we buy. We end up throwing it away. It gets spoiled, whatever. We toss it. We never eat it. I'm as guilty of that as anybody. And it's frustrating, terrible, awful that happens in my household. But one of the problems are those labels that tell you what date something's no longer okay, that it turns into a pumpkin. Not a pumpkin you eat. So Walmart is, I know Walmart that people always love to hate. Walmart has done something that nutritionists are ecstatic about, and people that are distressed about all the food waste are really excited about. What they're doing right now is they are doing new food labels that make it clear that an item that you don't have to worry about spoilage, but it'll say best by, meaning not best B-U-I, best B-Y, meaning the food is at its absolute best by a certain date, whatever that date would be. 14 November, whatever it is, to try to draw a distinction between that and an item that is supposed to be thrown out. So the items now will say best if used by and have a date. If you don't use it by that date, that doesn't mean you can't eat the item. It's still okay. On the other hand, if something will go bad, that's a whole different story. But the items that still will have useful shelf life for you past that date will now have this thing that hopefully other retailers will adopt as well, and food processors, food manufacturers, that will clear up all this confusion about best by, use by, sell by, whatever by. And people just flat out don't understand how this stuff works. So the reality is, when we don't know, we throw it away. And what's better is if you do know, and you see now this new labeling, again, best if used by, that should signal you the item is still absolutely fine for you to eat. And on another issue, thanks to a study by the U.S. military, all the over-the-counter meds that you have in your house that have expiration dates on them, you may think that if you take them past that expiration date, they are now useless. What the military found was that even after way past the expiration date on over-the-counter medicines, they are still at efficiency levels way above 90%, many at 99%, that they are still very effective medicines, and there is not a need for you to throw them away and waste your money. And Ross is with us. Hi, Ross. How are you?
Doing well, Clark. How are you doing?
Great, thank you.
My question today is, I've come across a good deal, or a used car that my friend has, and he needs to get rid of it because he's leaving the country. Now, I could assume the payments that he's making right now with no problem, but I have another car that I owe about $7,000 on. My question to you would be, what's the best way to get rid of that second car?
Okay, so you want this car from your friend who's leaving the country. You want to get rid of the car that you owe $7,000 on?
Right.
Okay. How much is the car worth that you owe the $7,000 on?
At minimum, $8,000. So it's worth more than I owe.
Okay, how'd you know where I was going with that question?
Well, I listened to you, Clark.
Okay. Well, one thing I want to, before I forget, you cannot, with most lenders, assume your friend's car loan.
Okay.
You would have to buy the vehicle and get your own new loan on it rather than assume the friend's loan.
Okay.
Otherwise, the friend would have to stay as owner, the friend would have to insure it, and the friend would have to hope that you really made your payments.
Okay.
That's too much to ask of your friend.
Right.
So make sure you can qualify for a loan on the friend's car first. But if you do, and you want to get rid of the car you have, you will get about $1,500 more if your situation is similar to most people. You'll get about $1,500 more selling it yourself, either online with one of the big online sellers like Auto Trader or eBay Motors, or advertising it locally. How big or small of a town do you live in?
Pretty small town.
Oh, then you got to widen your net and consider advertising it on the big websites if you want to try to catch a really good buyer for it.
Okay.
Now, if you trade it into a dealer, dealers love getting their hands on used cars, right, because they can dress them up and they make a good markup on them after they take them in. But you will get a what's known as a trade-in price, which is a lot less than you'll get trying to sell it on your own.
Right, and I think that was what I was kind of looking at. I really don't care if I take a little loss on the car. The car I want is financed through the actual car company. I don't know if I can say it. I think it's Acura is who it's financed through. And my question is, would they take a trade-in?
No.
Finance that car to my name?
They will not.
Okay.
They won't make any kind of arrangement like that. And you should contact them and see if they are interested in writing a new loan for you or not. And if they're not, you've got to run over to your bank or credit union and see if they'll make the loan. You don't want to leave your friend high and dry, and you don't want to believe you're getting this if you're not going to be able to qualify for it. So that's why I think the first things to do is find out if they will write a new loan for you at the automaker's finance arm, or if you can get a loan on your own that you can handle. And if the answer to both those questions is no, you're done. If the answer is yes, then I'd go to, how many car dealers are there within, let's say, half hour's drive of you?
A bunch.
Oh, okay. All right. It would be good for you to get, now don't think I lost my mind here. You ready?
I'm ready.
I want you to get 5 used car appraisals on that.
Okay.
Because until you hit 5, you're not really going to know if you're being offered fair money for your used vehicle for purchase by their used car lot. Chad is with us. Hello, Chad. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing, Clark?
Great, thank you.
I'm a 20-year-old college student with about $1,500 in debt, and as I'm looking to stay in school for another 4 to 5 years, I'm looking to keep the interest from spiraling out of control.
Okay.
And also wondering if there's a way to improve my credit so I can do things like rent an apartment.
All right, so this $1,500, is it on a traditional Visa or MasterCard, or what's it on?
Some are Visa, MasterCard, some are...
so you have multiple cards.
I have one credit card, actually 2 credit cards and a phone bill that went to collection.
All right. They're all past due.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. As far as renting an apartment, the apartment complexes overwhelmingly will pull your credit, and before they'll rent to you, because of your credit, they will require substantial backbreaking deposits.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the alternative in this market, if you can't bring these debts current, and that's where you are right now as a student, right? You can't bring them current?
No, I can't.
If you can't, then you want to look for a what I call an involuntary landlord. You want to look for somebody who's stuck with a house or condo they can't sell, and they've had to become a landlord.
Okay.
Now, the thing is that usually the people who are involuntary landlords aren't very, they don't think it through as well as they should, and they usually will not check credit. So you would be in a position to be able to rent without having to worry about being told you have to put up a $5,000 deposit or something like that because of the bad credit. Now, if there are a lot of vacant apartments, though, traditional apartments, near where you're in school,
yeah,
you may be able to rent one even with bad credit just because they're so desperate for tenants.
Okay, that makes sense.
But I'll tell you my favorite alternative, it's not very much fun for a college student, but to rent a garage apartment from someone. A lot of times at university settings, a lot of instructors and professors and university administrators and staff, in order to supplement income, will rent a garage apartment or carriage apartment. And many times you'll be able, in return for doing yard work or something like that, you may get a big cut on your rent.
Oh, I hadn't thought of that.
So that's a way you could really stretch your buck as a student. And it's always good if you get to know a professor or instructor you wouldn't get to know otherwise, because if they really like you, if you're going to be in school that many more years, who knows what kind of jobs you might be able to pick up that you could end up getting because that professor or instructor knows you. I mean, you just have no idea where that could lead.
Yeah.
But it kills some of the excitement of college life.
A little bit.
As far as the debts, are you just flat out tapped out and you can't bring these things current? Okay. Well, that is going to hassle you for a while.
All right.
Until you get on your feet. And when you do get on your feet, whether it's summer jobs or whatever it is, you want to do what you can to negotiate and bring these things current. Because do you know how long these things hassle you?
Isn't it something like 7 years? Or 8
That
years?
is the right answer. It is 7 years. Don't ever, though, if you ever do get in a position you want to try to make amends, don't ever pay any money till you have a written agreement that whatever you pay constitutes payment in full against the debt. Follow me at facebook.com/Clark Howard. Our web address, clark.com. When you got a question for me, go clark.com/ask. And Joel, who do we have an Ask Clark from?
This one's from Annette, and she says, I have an over 800 credit score, Clark, and my fiance, he's only got a score of 550. If we get married, can his past debtors come after my income and expect money from me?
Annette, how could you marry somebody with a credit score like that? No, just kidding. True love. So the deal is his past debts are his past debts. They are not your responsibility. Having said that, do not have a joint checking account. Do not have a joint savings account. Do not have any joint accounts whatsoever. Anything that you have jointly would be at risk of being seized. So even though you join your heart together, you do not join your wallets together. And at the point that his credit is cleaned up and there's no more risk to seizure of assets, at that time, if you want to commingle, it's just fine to do so. But prior to an all clear that there is nothing else lurking out there where your money could be eaten up as they try to get at his money, you cannot commingle. The very act of getting married does not create a liability for you for his past debts. In a very small handful of states, any future liabilities that he would create while you're married could potentially create liabilities for you. But in terms of past debts, the past is the past, and it will not, in fact, affect you.
All right, Clark, we got a question from screen name Texas Mom who says, I have a life insurance agent trying to sell me a whole life insurance policy as a way to save for college. Is that a good idea?
Please don't tell me that. Please don't say that.
Red alert, red alert.
That is the worst advice. Life insurance should never be used as a way to pay for college. Life insurance is potentially tax advantaged. A 529 college savings plan or a Coverdell education savings account, the two of them are tax-free. Tax-free trumps tax advantaged any day of the week. And it is a product that should never, that is a firm never rule, be used for college. Now, let me tell you, the alternative, Texas Mom, of doing the 529 plan, you can put the money in, commission-free, it grows tax-free. For eligible expenses for your child for college, it is spent tax-free. And the limits on contributions typically way beyond what you'd ever need, a couple of $100,000 per child. So, and from very tiny amounts as low as $15 to $25 per contribution. So it runs the gamut. The Coverdell Education Savings Account, you're allowed to put $2,000 in each year. It grows tax-free and can be used either for private school, K through 12, or for college. So depending on how much you want to contribute, what your goals are, the chances that your child might go to private school, the Coverdell might be a better choice. Life insurance, never, not ever.
Stay tuned for 60 seconds of AP News headlines right after this podcast.
I'm glad you're with us on the Clark Howard Show, where you learn ways to keep more of what you make. Our web address, clark.com. When you got a question, clark.com/ask. The used car market that has been so traditional is going through huge radical reformation right now because of the way people in their 20s and 30s want to buy a car. I was at dinner the other night with a couple, and she is, if I were to guess, in her late 20s, and she was talking about buying a car, and that she was buying her car from a website called Carvana. But to her, it was just an app on her phone, and she was picking out the car, and she was just buying it on there, and sight unseen. And I said, does that scare you at all? She said, she looked at me like I was from Mars. Why would that scare me? Whole different mentality. And Carvana, Beepi, B-E-E-P-I, Vroom, V-R-O-O-M, they're all apps and websites as well. They're all .coms. They all use slightly different methods, but they're all about you buying a car that you only look at little pictures of on your phone, and you say, yes, I'll take that one, and you buy it, and they pretty much all follow the same business model. You buy the car sight unseen, but you have 7 days to return it for a refund, no questions asked. They are like modern versions of CarMax. CarMax, which I guess is the nation's largest used car dealer at this point, is more analog, and all these people are all digital in how they're approaching selling cars. But the traditional way that maybe you or I bought a used car, it is not relevant to most people in their 20s and 30s. They're just not going to buy cars that way. So the question is, how safe is it for you to buy a car from an app on your phone? Well, remember, it's all about convenience, right? And so if you buy one, it's very easy. You just click to purchase. The financing that will be available through these apps will be more expensive than if you go get your own car loan at a credit union, and maybe much more so than if you get your own car loan through a credit union. In the 7 days you have the right to return a car for a full refund, this is not optional. You must have the car checked out by an independent mechanic of your choosing. Because remember, once that 7 days is up, it's done. And if that car has all kinds of problems, they become your problem. As far as buying a car this way, seems fine to me. If it's what you want to do, go for it. But look at all three. Not all three may serve where you live. But again, Carvana, Carvana, Vroom, Vroom, and Beepi, Beepi, the new wave, the new way of buying a used car. Derek is with us. Hi, Derek. How are you?
Good, Clark. How you doing?
Great, thank you. A nasty collector has re-entered your life. Tell me about it.
Well, I got something in the mail yesterday from a collection agency. I called them today to find out what it was in regards to because it didn't match the current account that I have with this particular company, and they said that it was due to they gave me the address, which I do remember living at this address back in college in the late 90s, but they couldn't give me any information in regards to an invoice or anything like that. They said I had to give them a written notice, and then they would send it off to the company. So basically the bottom line I want to find out is this.
Wait, this is from the 90s?
Yeah, when I graduated from college in 2000, so I would have lived at this particular location at least a year or two before I graduated.
All right, well, let me tell you what's up, okay?
Okay.
That is what's known as a scavenger collector. And what they have done is they have gone to a company and they've said, hey, do you have any old debts that are outside statute of limitations? You've written them off. They were hopeless. And they'll say, yeah, we got all this stuff here. Well, what if we paid you a penny on every dollar of that debt? And they'll be like, you serious? Stuff from the 90s? You're going to pay us a penny on the dollar? And they'll say, sure, we'll take the money. So then the collectors use any and all tactics, in many cases legal and illegal with the scavenger collectors, to try to collect money. And what I've read is that they, on average, will collect 13 cents on the dollar of old debts. They don't have any way of knowing if it's a valid debt. The company that turned over your name has no way of knowing. It's just a computer entry. They don't even know if it's valid. But there are a couple of things here. One, you have something there that cannot be reported on your credit report because it's over 7 years old. And virtually every debt in every state would have been, by this point, outside statute. Do you know what I mean when I say outside statute?
Yeah, it's basically that's outside the window where they can collect it or report it.
No, they can sue on it. So someone can attempt to collect on something forever, but the power to sue is limited in each state by the type of debt and how they have established the limitations of years on that type of debt. So these people are just on a prospecting mission. And so there may not actually be any money you owe. They don't really know anything about the money they say you do owe. They're just trying to play mind games on you to get you to pay.
Okay, so basically because it's, in this particular case, it's 10-plus-year-old debt. Whether it's valid or not, there's really nothing they can do. And if I decide...
Oh, no. Well, let me tell you, a lot of the scavenger collectors will illegally put something on your credit report again and hope that you don't know that they have broken the law.
Okay.
So you will, from the first contact was letter or phone?
Letter.
Okay. That letter should tell you on the back, this is an attempt to collect debt. If you dispute the validity of the debt, write us back within 30 days. Do you see that on there?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Write them back by certified mail, and you're going to make 3 points in that letter. You ready?
Go ahead.
Point number 1. This is not a valid debt. I owed no such money to this organization. Number 2, even if I did owe such a debt, you are outside statute of limitations, and as you know, you are not allowed to sue me on this debt. Number 3, as you also know, you are outside the period that even if it was a valid debt, you can report it on my credit report. And if you take any action in violation of the law, I will exercise my rights to sue you. And you just end it there. No need for any friendliness at all. Sign your name, send that by certified mail, and keep a copy for a long time.
Okay.
These people are bullies. They are people who are generally pretty sleazy. They look at the laws of the United States as an inconvenience, not something to be followed. And it is your job, when a lie has been stated, to answer back. Because a lie unanswered becomes the truth in 24 hours, an old political phrase. Laura is with us. Hi, Laura. How are you?
Hi, Clark.
Laura, you have a tenant who ran out on you. Is that true?
Well, we actually kicked her out. She had been living in our house with cats, and the odor was so strong that the next-door neighbor called and reported that something strange was going on. She thought we had a wild animal in the crawl space.
Oh.
Turned out that when we went into the unit, she said she'd been depressed for about a year since her mother died, and she had 6 cats living in there, and they had used the entire house as their cat box. There wasn't any kind of kitty litter except for newspaper and cardboard box.
I am so sorry. I had a situation one time with a tenant that was not as severe as you're talking about, and it was a single cat, and it still required a lot of remediation work on our part to remove the cat odor. We had to, I'll tell you what I had to do. I had to rip the carpet out. I had to then have the floor dry out for a while, have it treated with I don't remember what the chemical was, then had to have the walls treated and repainted. And I had to have some baseboard replaced. I mean, it was a major undertaking. And in your case, with half dozen cats, you've got more on your plate than I had.
They said we'd have to take the subflooring out, the cabinets, baseboards, the appliances, pretty much everything. I would get is that a single opinion you have that you need to do that much to eradicate the problem? We've had 2 people go in there, and we're having a third one tomorrow, but time is kind of the essence because we don't want it to become a health hazard. Yeah, I understand, but I'd rather you take more time to get more opinions than you rush and go further than you might need to. I hear how much upset there is in your voice. I mean, you're really right between frustrated and angry, aren't you? Oh, yeah. So you have the right to seek compensation from this former tenant. I don't know that she has anything. She was on disability, and I'm not aware of any assets that she has. She was driving an old beat-up car, and I don't think she has much. If she really is what's referred to by lawyers as judgment-proof because there's really no there, this is just one of those dead ends and being a landlord that you'll just have to overcome. I've had an incident where a tenant skipped on me and had a fire in one of my rental properties, did not disclose it, and they left the country, and I had a great deal of expense and lost the ability to rent the place for 4 months while I was dealing with it. So being a landlord is not always wonderful, but the only option you really have is to go seek dough from this lady, which apparently is not going to happen. It's time for the Empowerment Zone. This is our special segment here on the Clark Howard Show, where our producer Kim shares stories from people who are taking charge of their lives, empowering themselves, and hopefully inspiring you.
Growing up, listening to Clark, I was always intrigued when he would talk about the idea of a max saver. And I guess, I found early on, when I started my job, I worked at the same job for 15 years. And when I started at 22, I was intrigued by that idea and found that I could pretty much do that and still live happily. But early on, I was just doing it and not really knowing exactly what the end goal would be. I figured I would probably just still work to my mid-50s or 60s, but probably just be that much better off than everybody else.
This is Evan. He's a former government employee from Denver, Colorado, and around May of 2013, he figured out what that end goal could be. Early retirement, which he did last month at the age of 37.
Kind of had the epiphany that I didn't have to work until 55 or 65. I could just, because of my kind of unusual ability to save, I could just use that to my advantage and just quit working that much sooner. And I worked very hard to get my job, and I loved it. It was a good job, but I just realized that as a W-2 employee, there's always going to be people that can tell you what to do. So I realized that my ability to save was also kind of like an ability to buy freedom. Then I could just live how I wanted to, which was very appealing to me.
Early on, Evan wasn't making that much money, but he found he was able to live comfortably and happily. So, throughout his career, he kept that smaller income as his baseline, and he saved the rest.
So basically, with every pay raise that I got, I was able to sock that away, no problem. But as I got more raises and stuff, and looking back on the entire 15-year period, I would say it was probably about 55% over that period of time. The federal government has the Thrift Savings Plan, or TSP, which is the corporate 401k equivalent. So I was always maxing that out from the beginning. So I never really felt the pinch from that. And then, in addition to that, I did a Roth IRA the whole time as well. And so later on, when I started getting the additional raises, started funneling that money towards a combination of paying off my mortgage early and opening a taxable brokerage account and putting the difference in that as well.
How long did it take you to pay off your mortgage?
I was able to put down a pretty sizable down payment, 40%. So I was able to pay off the mortgage that I had in about 5 years. And, just made, biweekly payment schedule and made additional principal payments. You got to figure out how much you need to be able to retire comfortably. And I think a lot of people just think they'll keep on working, that there's no such thing as enough money, and they'll just try and make as much as possible. But I think there is such a thing as enough.
Evan decided to cut back in smaller ways as well to help move him towards his goal even faster.
And I realized that, the bike is the easiest way to get around, and my car was just sitting. I realized that's not the win, because you still have, insurance, and your registration is that much more because of the taxable value of an expensive car, and just the gas and, maintenance and upkeep. So I just bought like a simple little compact car. I just bought it used. It had about 78,000 miles on it, and that was a life improvement, because when I do get around in my compact car, it's so much easier to parallel park. Gas and insurance are nothing for it. So that was a nice little hack that helped me kind of accelerate into early retirement. And then another thing I did was I cut the cord with cable, just got an HD antenna, and would just watch a show live if I want to, or a sporting event. And eliminating the monthly recurring bills really helped out. And then by just carrying those low expenses into retirement, I think that should increase my chances of success.
When Evan realized he'd saved enough for retirement, he didn't exactly shout it from the rooftop.
I was real low-key about it. I just told my manager, I gave 4 weeks notice before I left, and I told her I would just like to keep it quiet and prefer that she not tell anybody. And so when I left the last day, fellow coworkers were completely shocked, but happy for me at the same time. And it was kind of funny, because it seemed like the common response from them when I told them I was leaving and didn't really need another job to go to was, man, I'm jealous. I wish I could do the same. So, but it was kind of neat to hear that. But they were happy for me. So it was an incredible feeling. I just walked home. I couldn't wipe the smile off my face. And I was just ready to roll into early retirement.
So just how does a newly retired 37-year-old spend his days?
So far, it's early retirement's just kind of been like an extension of the weekends, where things I enjoy doing, I just do them a little more often. And, also it's great being able to do things off peak, like going to the grocery store at 10:08 a.m. on a Thursday, where nobody else is there. try and do some volunteer work as well. My uncle and I just ran a Meals on Wheels route yesterday for a couple hours that, felt good, and it's good to give back a little bit. And then the Denver Rescue Mission is just about a mile away from my house, so I volunteer for the breakfast shift there regularly too, which kind of gets the day started off right. So there's plenty to do. It's only limited by your mind, and I think as I get into it, I'm going to wonder how I was ever able to sit at a desk for 15 years.
Evan shows the whole idea of having a goal and sticking to it. Saving more than half of his pay through the years. You just have to have a target that really, really matters to you. And in his case, freedom was key.
Thanks for listening to the Clark Howard Podcast. Download new episodes every Monday through Friday at podcastone.com. That's podcastone.com. Stay tuned for the latest AP News headlines from Podcast One, right after this. When shopping for car insurance, consider this. Geico has been saving people money on car insurance for over 75 years. So if you're serious about savings, it's simple. Go to geico.com. After 75 years, they know how to save you money.
AP Update, I'm Ross Simpson. Despite denials by the president that there was nothing nefarious about sending $400 million in cash to Iran to pay some decades-old debt, a former terrorism financial analyst says the payment looks very much to him as illicit finance.
The president today admitted that he was not allowed to send money to Iran via bank or through the formal financial sector, and so he therefore sent a pallet of cash to Iran in an unmarked cargo plane as a means to circumvent our own laws.
Jonathan Schanzer at the Foundation for Defense of Democracy says the Treasury Department uses the term bulk cash smuggling to describe the delivery in January.
This was the sort of behavior that would earn governments like Iran sanctions just a few years ago, and now it's being touted as statecraft.
AP Update, I'm Ross Simpson.